Right, let's go straight into looking at an exam type question. How does Shakespeare portray the character of Lady Macbeth in the extract? How does he present Lady Macbeth? And how does he present women in the play as a whole? If this was a mid-level answer, you have probably written similar paragraphs yourself. So, Shakespeare doesn't like women. He makes Lady Macbeth partly responsible for killing Duncan. She makes Macbeth feel like a coward if he doesn't do it, saying, "Screw your courage to the sticking place and we will not fail." Lady Macbeth is shown by Shakespeare to be a strong woman. However, in this day, women were supposed to be wives and mothers with no opinion. Now, what is wrong with this response? I mean, it looks accurate, it's pretty clear, but why is it not in that top band? What do you think, Mary?
Well, I think that, first of all, the language is very simple. Shakespeare doesn't like women as well is a generalisation that actually we can't make. You can't put words into Shakespeare's mouth because we don't know what he was thinking. But what we can do is we can offer up suggestions. So instead of saying Shakespeare doesn't like women, we would say something along the lines of Shakespeare presents women like this, and then look at the quote and then go on to talk about it. So what we want to do is look at the next exemplar and look at how we can develop our generalizations into something that sounds more sophisticated and analyzes and posits ideas a little bit further.
Yes, I have to agree with you. And the other thing is, you've got this quote here, but it isn't really explained. There's a tagged on bit of context about women in the day, but again, it's very general. There's nothing specific. There isn't even specific terminology. So when we're looking at vocabulary, I'm not seeing any language vocabulary. I'm not seeing anything that even contextualizes this as Jacobean. So let's have a look at something where it's a little bit more developed.
Right, so taking the question again, how does Shakespeare portray Lady Macbeth in the play, and then how does he portray women as a whole throughout the play? Let's look at something that's edging towards a level 9. Shakespeare presents women in very complex and unusual ways in Macbeth because the Jacobean audience would expect women to be silent, submissive, and obedient to the dominant patriarchy.
Now, there's a lot of big words there, and some of you are probably thinking, oh my God, I've never heard that word before. Or you're thinking, how am I going to remember all this terminology?
Yeah, those words won't come easily to me.
And the key here is when you're studying for this paper or any of your literature papers is write down some of this key terminology, write down the vocabulary. You're not expected to know this just from general knowledge or just from what you've heard. You actually need to learn it just like you would learn quotes. So write down some of these phrases, words like submissive, subservient.
Patriarchy.
Patriarchy is a great word to learn because it's not just in Shakespeare.
No.
Because if you've got Inspector Calls, for example, that same word is going to be useful in the context there again. So what we have here is a point. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the boring old PEE structure, which is a very good starting point. So don't dismiss it, even though you've heard it 100 times. You've got writer's method. You go straight in there with Shakespeare Presents. Because what we're saying is this is a crafted piece of writing. This is not a story. Lady Macbeth is not a real character. Okay, everything is a construct. And that's what we need to remember. So once we've made our points, we then need to move on to developing this point and obviously getting some evidence for why we've chosen it, or linking it again to the extract that they've given you in your exam.
So, evidence. For instance, his characterisation of Lady Macbeth shows her to be a woman in control with power over her husband. Screw your courage to the sticking place and we'll not fail.
So here you've got, again, straight in with some terminology. a lot of you will just go straight into talking about Lady Macbeth, Lady Macbeth. Remind your examiner that she is in fact a character, and this is characterization. And then, of course, you've brought in the themes. Excellent.
Power.
You're not wasting any part of your answer in the exam. Every word counts. And then, of course, what most of a good argument is going to hinge on is a well-chosen quote.
Your evidence.
And now I think the next important thing is, how do we link the context?
And then how, so you've made your point, you've given your evidence with your quote. Then, to really fix that high level from the examiner, you want to now discuss it, analyse it, put your thoughts into it, kind of show the examiner that you're going to now really think about what motivated Shakespeare in his writing and his characterisation. So we could have something along the lines of, this is not the expected role for a Jacobean wife, and even though her power changes over the course of the play, in the beginning it is her dominant nature that drives Macbeth to commit regicide. Regicide is an act against God and the divine right of kings, and her encouraging such a thing would be both shocking and immoral for Jacobean audiences. Shakespeare presents her as usurping Macbeth's role as head and by criticising his manhood, suggesting he's cowardly. She subverts the dominant patriarchal hegemony.
That's a big word, isn't it, Mary?
That's a ridiculous word, Bianca.
But again, these are students really looking for that level 9.
They're showing off.
They're showing off, okay?
And why not show off?
And it's important to show off because you only get this chance in the exam to show off.
Yeah.
But if you don't put the word hegemony in, you're still probably going to get a level 9.
Did I say it wrong?
It's probably my accent.
Probably. Let's blame you.
Anyway, moving on. So now you can see the context is weaved in with that quote. They haven't gone, quote, oh, now I need to do language, now I need to do context. They've mentioned the context as they're going. And then what the student has done has looked at language. So looking at Lady Macbeth's language.
In the quotation. So within that quote, you want to actually pull apart the language that she uses, the vocab that is used. So for example, her language is often presented through imperatives, commands, and dark, violent imagery. She includes herself in his ambition for the crown with the collective pronoun weal, implying that she too seeks power and control. It has been suggested, therefore, that for all her wickedness and manipulation, she is presented as a fourth witch or Jezebel figure in the play who sees Macbeth as a route to the ultimate power position.
So, if you remember from what we were talking about earlier, it's important to offer up an argument, to look at different viewpoints, because that's really what you're doing. You're arguing a point about a character or a theme or an idea in the play. So when we're developing an argument, it's important to evaluate. So we've set this up almost as just a little question. So the student might say, for example, so why does Shakespeare present such a strong female character in the opening, only to diminish her authority and role by the end of the play's plot? And I think this is really important because by including plot and looking at both the beginning and ending of the play, you're actually looking at structure and form. So you're thinking about more than just language. You're thinking about when characters are on or off, exits, entrances, when their role is over.
And ultimately,
climax.
Ultimately, purpose. The writer's purpose. Purpose, audience, and form.
Exactly. So now the next phase will then be to develop that argument and possibly link it back to context.
So, perhaps he is suggesting that women should know their place in society, or else it will upset not only the family balance, but the entire kingdom. Women like Lady Macbeth are therefore portrayed as a dangerous threat to male power as well as society. They seem to be just as hellish, manipulative, and masculine as witches.
All right, and you can see a kind of personal response here. And for those top bands, examiners really like to see a personal opinion creeping in, you know, where a student's making very intuitive, perceptive comments about a character or a situation.
Personal, your own thoughts, your own ideas coming through. Because what the examiner wants to see is that you've not just regurgitated what a teacher has taught you. You are showing that you are interpreting different ideas and thoughts about why, again, Shakespeare has characterised these people in the way that he has done.
And it might be an idea at that point to maybe offer an opinion about a modern audience's interpretation, or even your interpretation, or how some of those characters would be interpreted today. So this would be, for example, when you could bring in the feminist perspective or the more modern contemporary look at some of these characters. And we really hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. If you'd like to have any of the information that we have talked about, or any of the slides with the points, evidence, explanation and evaluation, then please click on the website below where you will be able to purchase the study notes. So please visit our website, which we will be updating regularly. And if you'd like to send us any of your own work so that we can actually evaluate it, read it out online, then please do ask us to, and we can mention your name or not.
And we're also hoping to set up a little Instagram with some nuggets, some little nuggets.
Oh,
yes.
Okay,
we're going to be setting up an Instagram with some little nuggets and tips that you can access on your phones, because we know how teenagers are obsessed with their phones. And just
you can have access to us at all times. 24/7.
24/7. We will be there. I'll be there. I'll be there.
You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running.
Sassy tutors. To see you again.